and it's going to go over the edge and down. So very, very fast transformations are going to happen in a very, very short period of time is how I understand fractal time compression. Right to the very end of this process, we're not really going to know if it's going to work out or not. It's going to be that kind of a heebie-jeebie, helter-skelter ride. And I think this year is going to be the year where a lot of us go, maybe those guys had something when they were talking about 2012 and when they were talking about transformation and contact and all of this kind of stuff. I think we could be very close, James, to this being the year where we really do make contact with what is, of course, the penultimate question.
Yeah, we've had. It's funny because there's such a major censorship in this program that even the UFO community has major censorship going on, and we've had contact here for probably 15 years. Mm-hmm. And it's gone even more intense now, and the ships have come right on cue, right when they say they're going to come. We have cameras waiting for them. Mm. You know, we had Fox News here, and the ships came in. We had Danny Dyer here with BBC and Paranormal State, and the ships came right in, and they had their cameras waiting. We told them right where to point their cameras and when, because we have a telepathic contact going on. Mm-hmm. We've done this redundantly, and we're pretty much censored out of the UFO community. You know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. There's so much fear, and trying to keep the question unanswered and keep the information out that they want to keep it all nuts and bolts and dark or in the past, basically. And there's people that are making a lot of money on this, and they don't want the now information and what's happening now to come out. They want to keep it within their box, you might say.
Well, I came to the conclusion very early on when contact began for me in 1992 in Victoria, British Columbia. And by the way, the name Echan Deravy, and there is nobody else on this planet with such a strange name, I guarantee, because I've done web searches on it. Uh-huh. That name came as a result of the contact that began for me and carried on for 9 years. And, of course, one of the first places I went, James, to get confirmation or to get some sense of understanding of what I was going through was the UFO community. And as you said, it's all nuts and bolts. They're alien flying machines piloted by extraterrestrials. That's what they are. Mm-hmm. And I didn't find any understanding in that community about, okay, if that's the case, how come I go to a wood almost every night in a small town in British Columbia and they show up, no matter what time of the night it is, within 10 minutes, or they're actually there before I arrive? When I say they, I simply mean very, very beautiful, bright, blindingly beautiful white lights, which transform into helicopters and airplanes and do all kinds of shows, to completely bamboozle the human mind to the extent that it becomes like a Zen puzzle. Try figuring this one out, Jimmy. You can't. It's not that simple. And it's not simply extraterrestrial flying machines. So I do understand why you're being censored, because now you're going into a very deep rabbit hole. And that's why I had to start studying many different other investigative areas, for example, shamanism, psychology, remote viewing, to get different ideas about what this might be. And what it might be is maybe something beyond our imagination. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's an ongoing mystery to me.
Oh, yeah. I find out the more I learn, the more I don't know. And, and it is. I don't think anybody can really wrap their head around, and I think that's the first step to figuring this out, is to realize you don't have the answers, and
that's right.
Allow the answers to come to you and allow it to unfold. But what I'm seeing is, I know words would fail, but this is a multidimensional experience, and they have spiritual technologies are beyond anything that we can imagine, and they're tied into consciousness, and these beings can be anywhere, anytime, They know your thoughts. They know your future. They know your past. They know everything about you. You know, these beings, depending on where they are in their evolutionary process. But
yes,
it's like, you know, it's like you're dealing with the source itself, or beings that are fully aligned with the source and have access to the same information.
Dealing with a level of intelligence and consciousness that literally is jaw-dropping. If I can use this term, when we say multidimensional, actually the terms us and them become defunct. Exactly. Because they are as much visitors from within ourselves as they are from outside of ourselves, and thus we inevitably have to get to the very thorny, tricky, dicky problem of what is consciousness to even start to get a handle on this. Mm-hmm. And of course, once you enter the realms of the $1 million what is consciousness, well, then as you said, you realize that the head is never going to get it. This is a question that inevitably becomes spiritual. And that's where I believe the UFO community has radically failed us. Mm-hmm. The UFO community has never come up with a truly heart-based spiritual understanding attempt, let's say. Not anywhere that I've found, really. There's been hints at it here and there. Mm-hmm. But it's all been very cognitive and mental and very divisive and not multidimensional at all. And I feel like saying, okay, why would an extraterrestrial species come every night to a small town in British Columbia and flash lights at a 5'8" Scotsman, for God's sake? Mm-hmm. You know, why? That doesn't make any sense at all. That's not what it's about. It's something about human consciousness being able to either project, as Jung had suggested, or it's, who knows what it is. But like you said earlier, this is a level of synchronicity and intelligence and knowledge about an individual that I've only seen rivaled, actually, in the shamanic tradition of South America, where you meet up with the same kind of intelligent entities, but in a visionary state. And so then you have to ask yourself the question, are these intelligent entities that I'm actually now conversing with in this altered state of consciousness, are they the same beings that I seem to be connecting with via lights in the physical sky that my five senses perceive? And the answer is, yep. Definitely yes.
You know, they want to stick to the nuts and bolts, you know, but their physics tells them that there's at least 11 dimensions out there. Actually, I believe it's infinite. But, you know, if there are 11 dimensions out there, what's on those dimensions, and are they physical? And they said, no, you know, in order to prove this is a reality, we want the UFO nut, you know, that came off the landing gear, or something else. And you go, well, you're demanding physical proof of non-physical events. And if you don't have the consciousness to experience this, which they've proven that you actually see with your brain, not your eyes.
Yes.
You know, if you don't have the consciousness or the reference points to even understand any of this, what's the point? You know, and I told him too, as I said, you know, as far as being a ushering in contact and things like that, there's no way these beings are going to work through the UFO community, basically, unfortunately, because they haven't risen to the occasion. And the ones that have risen to the occasion are censored or cut out. And there's some women in the field that are just beautiful beings. They know what's going down. They're very heart-centered, and they're far and few between. But you know, they're kind of being cut out of the system, unless they play the good old boy network game of, you know, keeping it in the past. You know, talk about some event that happened in the past, or they're talking about some abduction scenario or some negative, dark scenario. Then they get the voice, and they're allowed to, you know, go forward with their program.
Yes, the censorship is very strong, but then it always is. when an existing paradigm is mortally threatened. This has always been the case with culture here on Earth, always. And so this shouldn't be surprising to us that let's call it, for lack of a better word, real living information is heavily censored. But it's getting much more difficult to do that, thanks to what we have here, which is the Internet, radio, communication. But beyond that, what I see happening right now, and by the way, James, in Japan, we have a rather different situation, an incredibly dense population of very well-educated, aware, sensitive beings on a tiny rock in the Pacific, right? Who have a long spiritual tradition, very hooked up to communications technology. Now, what is the total result of all of that in living experience is that synchronicity has a much higher rate of incidence than anywhere else that I've been able to be in the world, because, of course, one of the fastest ways to understand synchronicity is through human relationships. Who's showing up in my reality? And when you have that many people and that much information, synchronicity actually increases. So they have a word now in Japanese, shinkuro suru, which is, they've verbalized it, to be synchronized, to be in synchronicity. And I'm hearing this word in Japan now on a daily basis, and nobody was using that word 10 years ago. Now, we're not talking about UFO people here. We're not talking about New Age people. We're talking about the man in the street, the woman in the street, are now using a new verb, which means to be in synchronicity. So that's telling me that there is contact happening through the operation of synchronicity, principally, that is beginning to awaken people to an entirely different paradigm, a different way of being, a different time system, if you like. And so for me, 2012 represents, amongst many, many images that I have, actually represents the end of time-space-based life. And actually, contact means an entirely new way of being in this reality, which is founded in synchronicity. And so nobody can stop this, no matter how much it's tried, the shutdown, the clamp down. It cannot be stopped. So I'm extremely hopeful that in the next 2 years, we will see fractal compression happen so rapidly that there will be no escape from the fact that we have to transform or be transformed. Which is it? Is it conscious? Is it a surrender to a process? These are the issues we'll be facing very soon.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing the same thing. I know there's certain elements out there, and I don't want to put a lot of energy towards them, that are doing everything they can to shut down this process, with their toys, their harp and Gwyn and even cell phones broadcasting, these HAD frequencies.
I know, but it's laughable.
Yeah.
It's laughable because, one of the books my wife actually did most of the translation. Of the 25 books I put out in Japanese, there were a few that were translated, and I thought, if I'm going to translate a book, which takes a long time from English to Japanese, I'm going to make sure it's a book that has a message that will last a long time.